Hello friends, it's Cassie. Welcome back for another video here on my YouTube channel. Today we are celebrating the Trinity Stamps January 2023 release with a video hop. And before I talk about that too much, let's talk about what we're using. I have the Sucker for You stamp set. It has some darling little images and then a great sentiment. We have the matching dies to go with it. We're also using the checkered background stencil along with the background add-on. These could be used by themselves, but they are great together as well. So let's jump into it. I have a piece of 5x7 watercolor cardstock that I am going to start out by spritzing with some Spun Sugar Distress Spray Stain. I love all the texture that these spray stains give, and I'm even going to do some splatter on that background. I want this to be nice and subtle, so I'm going to work my way up. We'll heat set that so that we can move on to the next step, which is bringing in our checkered background stencil. Now that stencil doesn't look like much right now, and you can't see the embossed edging that it has on the stencil to help you line up those squares, but they are there, I promise you. So we're going to tack down that stencil onto our tonic platform using some magnets and also a little bit of mint tape to block off some of that edging. Now what I love about this stencil is that it will work on any size card that you want. It is one of those continuous type stencils. I love those because I don't always make the same size card. And at this point I wasn't sure if I wanted a 5x7 or an A2 or what, so this is why I have a 5x7 piece of cardstock under here. I'm using some saltwater taffy distress ink that I'm blending all over this background using one of the blender brushes. Love those blender brushes that are newer to Trinity Stamps. They work so well for some of us that are having, the older I get, the less my hands want to work sometimes. So I really do like these blender brushes. They work really well. So I'm going to keep moving that stencil around so that I can fill in those areas. And then I'm going to take what, like I said, you can't see on the screen very well, is the checkered or the embossed edge, and I'm going to line that stencil up so that I can get my checkered area. And again, we'll use some of that mint tape to just kind of mask off some of that area, and then we're going to blend using that same saltwater taffy distress ink. You could change up the colors if you wanted to, but I just wanted this to be the same color. And I'm gradually working up in color, so I'm kind of keeping this fairly light, that saltwater taffy. You could blend that even darker, but I wanted it to be fairly light. But look at that, isn't that cool? So we'll move our stencil down, line it back up again, and then use our magnets, and then we'll blend the rest of the background. And I'm even going to get that strip on the side that's kind of white. So we'll just fill in that entire background just using this same way of doing it. But I love how that looks. Next, we'll bring in the checkered background add-on. This is the X's. There are hearts as well. I'm going to tack that down with a bunch of mint tape, even on the back. We'll put that into our makeshift splatter box, and then I'm going to use some tea dye distress spray stain. And I don't even do a very good job of spraying that all over. But the reason for that is I wanted some variation in those X's. I didn't want them to all be super dark. I wanted some of them to be nice and light. I think that adds a lot of interest to your background. And then I'm going to finish that out, heat set that, and then we'll move that stencil around and finish it up. And then I'm going to bring in the other stencil from the checkered background add-on, which is the hearts. And we'll do the same thing, and we'll put that back into our makeshift splatter box. And we are going to use some brand new Lumberjack Distress Spray Stain. And once again, same kind of technique. Don't want it to be super dark it'll be darker in some areas, light in others, but I just love how that looks. We'll heat set it, and then we will finish that up, getting the stencil going on the rest of the background. So there it is. I love how that looks. It is just probably one of my favorite backgrounds. Like I said, at that time, I wasn't sure exactly what size card I wanted. I did decide on an A2, so I am just going to take a piece of cardstock that measures 8.5 by 5.5 inches and scored at 4.25, which means for this panel, I am going to have to cut it down. But don't worry, I am going to use some of that, and for the rest, I'll save it for another card. I do decide to cut this down to 4 inches by 5.5 inches, and that's going to leave just a little bit of a white border on one side of the card, either the left or the right. At this point I hadn't quite decided. And then we're going to take this piece and trim it down to 5.5 inches, and then we'll cut it right in half because it's going to go on the inside of our card. I love doing that. It'll tie the outside to the inside, and I just think that's super fun. All right, now I have to stamp out my image. Once again, that comes from the Sucker for You stamp set. So I'm using some blackout ink onto some Express It cardstock because we're going to do some alcohol marker coloring. And then I'll do my best to put those colors up on the screen for you. But like I said, this is a part of a video hop. We are celebrating the brand new release. There is so much fun stuff that's being released through Trinity Stamps today. You're going to want to go check it all out. But that information is down in the description box for the next hop. And if you leave comments, you have a chance to win a prize. And who doesn't love prizes, right? So I'm coloring up this sucker using colors that I did to make my background. So we've got this color that's a little bit like the spun sugar, and our sucker was colored to look like the lumberjack, and this the bigger heart is going to look more like the saltwater taffy. And then once I'm done coloring with this, we're going to use our matching dies. But this stamp set was so cute. It just brought back some of the nostalgia from when I was in elementary school and we used to do Valentines. I don't know if they do them now, but that was a lot of fun. All right, like I said, bringing in the matching dies. We'll tack that down with a little bit of mint tape and run that through our die cutting machine. And then I'm going to take this panel and spray it up with some more of that lumberjack because I want to add that to the front of our card. We'll heat set that to make sure that is good and dry. And I do apologize, I don't zoom out, which I should have done. I was so into create mode that I wasn't thinking. But I'm using some double-sided adhesive to adhere down some twine to this little panel that I decided to use. That's just going to hold that twine in place. This twine matches really well to our background, and it happened to be sitting on my desk. And I am notorious for, if it is sitting on my desk, chances are I will try to use it. I guess it's my way of cleaning up my desk. I don't know. All right, anyway, I'm going to take some more of that double-sided adhesive because I want to make sure that this watercolor cardstock sticks to our background. And I meant to trim it down, but I did not do that. So I am going to just take it and move it over. And then I'm going to fold that over the side of the card, which adds a little bit of bulk, but it's not a big deal because I do decide to use some foam tape on the back of this. So we are going to make sure that stays in place just with some more of that double-sided adhesive, and then I'll take, which is completely unnecessary, I didn't need to do this. But then I do add some foam tape to the back, peel off that release paper, and then we're going to stick this panel down to the front of our card base, leaving that white border on the right-hand side. Then I'll use some Crafty Glue Friend to hold down our little sucker, and I'll also use the Crafty Glue Friend to put down our sentiment. And then, as a final touch, I will use my Crafty Glue Friend to adhere down the panels that I cut earlier for the inside of the card. So those are just going to go on either side, leaving a little white border in there as well. But that leaves a lot of room for you to write to your recipient, but it also ties the outside to the inside, like I said. I thought about adding some embellishments, but then I decided I would use some glossy accents on our sucker. Now, if you're unfamiliar with glossy accents, they are going to look cloudy when you put those down at first, but when they dry crystal clear and nice and shiny, just the way the sucker pack should look. So that's going to finish off our card for today. If you like this video, please hit that like button. Consider subscribing if you haven't already done so, and be sure to head down to the description box to check out how you can hop around and win some prizes. See you soon in another video. Bye, everybody.